Most people spend this week wrapping gifts and planning travel. We're spending it remembering the night the calls came from inside the house. The day a ghost came back to collect on a 50-year debt, and the moment an entire genre smirked and said, yes, this is a horror movie, and we know it. From snowy New England mansions to dingy video stores and cursed YouTube uploads, this week in horror history is loaded with cranky slashers, cozy ghost yarns, and at least one Christmas tree that tells you to commit murder. Now pour something warm, double-check the phone line, and let's unwrap what's going down. You're listening to This Week in Horror History on the Weekly Spooky feed. I'm Enrique Couto, your guide through the icy corridors of genres past. This time we're digging into the week of December 15th through 21st, a stretch that gave us horror comedy royalty, a foundational Christmas slasher, and one of the coziest ghost movies ever filmed. Coming up, a mad scientist and his monster prove horror and jokes can share the same laboratory. A sorority house is terrorized by obscene calls and attic shadows years before the slasher boom. A vengeful spirit stalks old men through snowdrifts and memory. Plus a lo-fi Christmas massacre you can play, and an analog horror sleep tape that wants into your dreams. Let's get to it. On December 15th, 1974, Mel Brooks released Young Frankenstein, his black and white love letter to the universal monster cycle, with Gene Wilder as the twitchy Dr. Frankenstein, and Peter Boyle as the most lovable corpse in cinema. Shot in a very classic, kind of gothic style, with lab gear borrowed from the original Frankenstein films, it's packed with gags horror fans still quote to this day. In fact, I think I mentioned this a few weeks back when I went to find It's Alive from the original Frankenstein movie. The first 5 or 6 results for the sound were from Young Frankenstein. It's a film that's really left a mark in horror history, even if it is a parody and a comedy. Another thing I think is truly hilarious about Young Frankenstein is it was put out in the 70s in black and white. And at that time, black and white was extremely old-fashioned and really just relegated to super low-budget movies and student films, things like that. Mel Brooks had to fight with the studio to keep the film in black and white because he felt like that was so necessary, and I would have to agree. So he sticks this little nugget into the trailer, and it always makes me laugh.
Don't miss Young Frankenstein, personally directed by Mel Blazing Saddles Brooks, in black and white. No offense.
20th Century Fox sincerely believed that the film could be bombed simply by being in black and white, and audiences not understanding that it's a parody and not some old film being re-released. Well, as is often the case with studios, they were absolutely, positively wrong in basically every way. On a budget of around $2.8 million, it earned roughly $86 million worldwide. I don't even think I have to do the in today's money calculations for you to understand what a massive boon that is. An absolute hit that showed horror fans would be happy to attend an affectionate parody. Now, this is something that, as far as revisiting Young Frankenstein, it's not currently on any major streaming service, not for rent, not to watch free with ads, nothing, nada, zip, zilch. So you're mostly looking at grabbing yourself a DVD or Blu-ray, and I do recommend you get it because it's absolutely worth a revisit. You'll laugh, you'll cry, and you'll learn to pronounce his damn name right. Now here's some horror perspective for you. Just 5 days later, on December 20th, 1974, Bob Clark's Black Christmas hits theaters. A sorority house is menaced by obscene phone calls, while a killer hides in the attic, watching from the shadows. This film is a classic. If you haven't seen it, you need to watch it. Yes, it's a little bit of a slow burn. What do you expect? It's 1974, man. It's directed by Bob Clark, who went on to direct another classic Christmas film that people have revisited for decades. But believe it or not, that one is a Christmas story. Yeah. So first, we had obscene phone callers. Then we had old Ralphie, and all he had to worry about was shooting his eye out. With Olivia Hussey, Margot Kidder, and the man himself, John Saxon, the film pioneered the concept of killer point-of-view shots, although not including the many giallos made in Italy, but that's a story for another day. It was also a trendsetter for holiday horror and, of course, making the infamous "the call is coming from inside the house" twist go beyond being an urban legend whispered around to a concept heard in theaters and talked about at water coolers and slumber parties. This was also years before Halloween and Friday the 13th, both famous slasher movies that focus on a day on the calendar. In many ways, Black Christmas is the first slasher movie, though that's a very long debate to get into, and we're not going to do that today. Made for roughly $686,000, it earned about $4 million worldwide. It slowly snowballed from a modest success to an absolute cult classic. And I have the 4K UHD, by the way, that came out from, I believe it was Scream Factory. The movie's never looked better, and it played in theaters last year. I got to see it on the big screen. It really sticks with you. And I'm going to resist the urge to play segments from the obscene phone caller in the film on this show because, oddly enough, this show is kind of family friendly. But, boy howdy. The film is available, and I mean very available, for you to revisit this holiday season, so you have no excuse. It's streaming on Prime Video, Peacock, AMC+, Shudder, the Criterion Channel, and more. And you can also watch it for free entirely with ads on the Roku channel, Pluto TV, Shout Factory, and several others. You can even find it over on Tubi TV for free, as well as the 2006 remake, Black Christmas, or as a lot of people like to call it, Black Xmas, which in my opinion has aged like fine wine. It's an early 2000s slasher full of thrills, chills, and the desire to toss your Christmas cookies, because it is a nasty one. They're both available to watch at Tubi. Get to work on those, because if you don't watch those, I don't see how your Christmas will be holly and or jolly. Let's go for something a little different. On December 17th, 2021, indie game developer Puppet Combo released Christmas Massacre on PC. It's a PS1-style slasher where you play Larry, a disturbed man whose Christmas tree whispers that he should make things right, and we all know what that means. Tank controls, VHS-style filters, and mean-spirited grindhouse kills make it a nasty little cult favorite. It's short, brutal, and drenched in cheap holiday decor. Basically playing like a lost 1980s video nasty if it were fed through a PlayStation. I've not played the game myself, but I've watched several YouTubers play it, and it is a lot of fun. It's very cheery. I'm not a huge gamer. I don't have a PC or anything to play it on, but this one is right up my alley. And if you want to check out Christmas Massacre, it is available on PC via Steam and other PC storefronts, with console ports on platforms like Nintendo Switch, PlayStation, and Xbox. PlayStation, I wonder if it'll work on my PlayStation 5. It's just the kind of thing you need to make your Yuletide extra grim. And to wrap things up, on December 19th, 2018, analog horror channel Local 58 dropped Real Sleep, a fake late-night infomercial for an experimental sleep program. This one is a lot of fun, a lot of creepy fun with a lot to dig your way into. It starts out like a grainy, low-rent advertisement or infomercial with very public access production values, then glitches into unsettling diagrams and corrupted instructions to, quote, reject false shapes, implying dreams are some kind of cosmic intrusion. The short quickly became one of Local 58's most talked about uploads and a cornerstone of the analog horror boom. I really do recommend you check this one out, and really just go to Local 58 on YouTube and watch a lot of the stuff they have, but Real Sleep, that is the money. All right, and it's a perfect after midnight viewing if you'd like to just absolutely ruin naps for a minimum of a week. So put it on late with the lights off, and then I dare you to go straight to bed. This week's episode is brought to you in part by the good folks at Aspire Drinks. You know me, my spookies. I live on late nights, horror movies, and way too much podcast editing. Sometimes I still need a boost of energy, but I've never been very good with caffeine. It makes me go crazy. It's 80 milligrams of natural caffeine sourced from green tea and guarana. When caffeine is naturally sourced, I've noticed I'm a lot less likely to feel jittery. So head to aspiredrinks.com, check out their 0 sugar, 0 calories, and even vegan flavors. They're light and sparkly. And as a gift to our spookies, if you head to aspiredrinks.com and use promo code SPOOKY, you get 20% off and support the show. That's aspiredrinks.com, promo code SPOOKY. Thanks to Aspire Drinks for their support. After the break, we're heading to a snowy New England town where 4 old men discover that burying a secret doesn't mean it won't knock on your door 50 years later. Welcome back to This Week in Horror History. Let's settle in for our Deep Cut Spotlight, a wintry ghost story that deserves a spot in your December rotation. Released in the United States on December 18th, 1981, Ghost Story adapts Peter Straub's novel into a chilly tale about the whimsically named Chowder Society. 4 elderly friends haunted by what they did to a young woman a half a century ago. Directed by John Irving and starring Fred Astaire, Melvin Douglas, Douglas Fairbanks Jr., John Houseman, and Alice Krieg. The film trades jump scares for atmosphere. Snow-packed streets, creaking mansions, and firelit storytelling sessions that feel like the world's bleakest Christmas gathering. On a reported budget of $13.5 million, it earned $23.4 million domestically. Respectable, but not a huge hit and not a cable marathon staple. Over time, though, it became a cult favorite among fans of slow, literary-style ghost stories, which is many of you spookies who tune in. So, what makes it worth pulling off the shelf this week? Well, there's plenty, so I'll just give you a few. Alice Krieg is quietly terrifying as the wronged woman who may, or may not, have ever truly left. The structure of old men telling overlapping tales allows the film to drift between haunted houses and guilt and even a touch of body horror. And most terrifying of all, at its core, it's a film about regret. The idea that something you did in your 20s can haunt you straight into your 70s. It's a film that has such a thick atmosphere. You will not regret sitting down on a cold winter night and watching it, unless you're doing so alone. And even then, if you're listening to this show, you'll probably enjoy that feeling. As far as where to watch it, it's available to stream on Amazon Prime Video, including free with ads, and you can rent or buy it digitally on Amazon, Apple TV, and Fandango at home. And there are also several options on DVD and a very, very nice Blu-ray from Shout Factory. So take it from me, your old Uncle Henny. Put it on late. Let the imaginary snow pile up at the windows, and just see if you don't start checking the glass for a pale face outside. Now let's raise a blood-spattered glass of eggnog for a few folks celebrating birthdays this week. First up, born on December 16th, 1967, Miranda Otto, from What Lies Beneath to Annabelle Creation and Aussie possession hit Talk to Me, which I did enjoy quite a bit. She's quietly become modern horror royalty, and it's very, very well deserved. So happy birthday, Miranda. Born on December 17th, 1977, is Catherine Winnick. Before she starred on Vikings, she logged time in video store staples like Satan's Little Helper, Amusement, and Hellraiser Hellworld, which, by the way, Satan's Little Helper is one of my all-time favorite Halloween picks. You don't want to miss that one if you get a chance to give it a watch. Happy birthday, Catherine. This next one is a household name, but he has some very strong ties to horror. Born on December 18th, 1963, is Brad Pitt. His genre resume includes Interview with the Vampire, the serial killer classic Seven, and the zombie blockbuster World War Z, but I'll forever remember him for starring in the Freddy's Nightmares episode Black Tickets. Yeah, he was on the Freddy Krueger TV series from 89 and 90, which, if you want to learn a little more about, you can listen to an entire podcast myself and my buddy Dave did, running down every episode of the often forgot and maligned series. Just search Welcome to Primetime on your favorite podcasting app. Happy birthday, Brad Pitt. And finally, another big name that owes a lot of his stardom to genre films. Born on December 19th, 1980, Jake Gyllenhaal. From Donnie Darko to the unnerving and underrated Nightcrawler, he's brought an off-kilter intensity that fits right into horror's extended family. So happy birthday, Jake Gyllenhaal. And if any of those films are on your shelf, this is the week to put them on in celebration. For our then and now, on December 20th, 1996, Wes Craven's Scream hit theaters and quietly rewired the slasher. And I want to mention Wes Craven is one of the few people to inarguably reinvent the horror genre twice in one career, and just over a decade apart. Nightmare on Elm Street was released in 1984, and since then all horror films that followed were different. Well, similarly, when Scream came to theaters, the horror market was never quite the same. Wes has done something many filmmakers could only dream of doing. He's one of my favorites, and I think he's horribly underrated. On a budget of around $14 to $15 million, it carved out roughly $173 million worldwide, reviving both Craven's career and the idea that slashers could be bloody, smart, and meta, all at the same time. Ghostface's mask became a Halloween staple. In fact, I was Ghostface 3 different times during my young years and teenage years for Halloween. The Drew Barrymore fake-out opening became instantly iconic, and suddenly, the slasher wasn't dead. It was just self-aware. Give it a rewatch. I assure you it's as good as you remember it. And you can catch it for free with ads on Pluto TV or rent it on the usual suspects like Amazon Prime Video, Google Play, Apple TV, or Fandango at home. Today, the franchise is a full-on legacy machine. Scream 7, directed by writer Kevin Williamson, with Neve Campbell's Sydney back at the center, is slated for an early 2026 release, proving this series has a lot of phone calls left to make. Don't miss that one in the theater. Now for our pick of the week. Well, it's the aforementioned Black Christmas from 1974. It fits the calendar perfectly. December 20th release, sorority house lights, snow outside the windows, and it feels nasty and even a little modern. The obscene phone calls, the unseen killer in the attic, and that bleak, unresolved ending that still gives me goosebumps to this day. They all play just as hard now as they did in 1974. Historically, it is a key Proto-Slasher. You can trace a straight line from its killer point-of-view shots and holiday vibe all the way to Halloween, Silent Night, Deadly Night, and a whole wave of Christmas carnage. But it's also just a great, mean little winter chiller with messy, believable characters, and a killer whose motives stay unsettlingly opaque. As I mentioned earlier, you can watch it on Prime Video, Peacock, AMC Plus, Criterion Channel, Shudder, as well as many places free with ads like the Roku Channel, Pluto TV, Shout Factory TV, and Tubi with its remake from the early 2000s. If you watch one Home for the Holidays horror movie this week, make it the one that quietly taught us just how afraid to answer the phone we should be. That's it for this week in horror history for December 15th through 21st. A week of vengeful ghosts, cranky sorority killers, cursed cartridges, and analog nightmares beamed straight into your sleeping brain. If you want more spooky goodness on the Weekly Spooky feed, tomorrow we have a brand new holiday-themed horror for you with the unsettling and misleading name of A Christmas Romance. On Thursday, we come out with a brand new free novella for you to listen to called An Angel of Death Christmas. And on Friday, I'll be carving up the mind-bending holiday horror film Dead End with Rachel on cutting deep into horror. And on Saturday, we'll have a big fat compilation of holiday horror stories to help you wrap your gifts while you hope the good Santa comes down your chimney. And if you notice that this show is dropping a little later, it's because there's so much Weekly Spooky fun. We just have to stack it up on the days, so sometimes this show might drop around noon or 1 o'clock to make way for a scary story. Until next time, keep the lights low, keep the volume high, and remember, our days are numbered, because that's how we tell them apart. See you next time.